Scott Cawthon created a game franchise, a series of horror games. But to me and many others, it wasn't the surprising jump scares or the eerie atmosphere that made the games as popular as they are today. It's the story. They have the type of story that I find really interesting and really exciting, the type where something is going on, but there is a big mystery and a huge story lying under the carpet. Thus, I created Five Nights at Wario's. If you have played the games, the story will be easier to follow. But to everyone, I advise to pay attention, as it can get confusing if you don't. This is the full story of Five Nights at Wario's. Rosalina, Queen of the Cosmos, always watching over the universe where the Mushroom Kingdom is located. But this is not the only universe in existence. Universes exist in an infinite amount, all coexisting in perfect balance. Thus the Mushroom Kingdom exists in many variations, similar yet different, in parallel universes. In one of these many universes, however, something was about to go very wrong. In this reality, Wario and Waluigi had recently opened up their own cafe, known simply as Wario's. They had a small budget, so the cafe was pretty small, but everything was going the right way. Wario sat night guard during the first week, but luckily no intruders came along. It did not take long before the amount of customers grew rapidly due to a special hamburger recipe Wario and Waluigi used, and the two of them grew fairly rich. A couple of years passed, and they eventually decided to close off Wario's cafe, and instead use all of their money to build Wario's dream, a massive fast food factory. They built it in a very old area, where the remains of some really old buildings still could be seen. The factory was built on top of these ruins, as no one was using the spot anyway. However, they quickly figured out that it was too much work for both of them, running a big factory all by themselves, so they hired Mario and Luigi, and even the princess came by now and then to check on how things were going, before she eventually started to work there herself from time to time. Still, Wario realized that they slowly went corrupt. The factory didn't get him nearly as much income as he had thought. Then one evening, as he was about to close off the factory for the day, he saw something old sticking out of the dirt just outside the front door. It was a book, an ancient book from the 14th century. It was a witch's book, a demonic ritual book. Turns out the factory had been built on top of the remains of the cabins of an ancient witch coven. Wario, willing to do anything for money at that point in order to save his factory, decided to read the book and also go through with one of the rituals. In the end, the factory got cursed. He sold his and his co-workers' souls to demonic forces in change for riches. The effect was their souls were doomed to become cursed with grief, anger, and confusion. Only after death eventually comes. Wario, not telling anyone else about his actions, instead told the others that they had gotten a great income on their fast food production lately. The others were filled with joy, until one day, someone broke into the factory in hope to steal the secret hamburger recipe. His name was Bruno Gate. Hiding in the basement, he panicked as he heard footsteps in the stairs. He used his chance and killed off the 5 workers, one by one, slicing their throats, stabbing their chests. Luigi got hung by his neck. Mario got his head chopped off. Wario fell last. His black dress got blood splatters on it, and his black hat on top fell off as Wario hit the ground. the thief managed to get away in panic, without finding any recipe. It was here that the souls of the 5 workers fell victim to the demonic curse. Instead of going to a heavenly paradise for rest, the souls returned to their bodies, possessing them, bringing them back to life. The demon-like people were now filled with hatred and grief, and could not think of anything else than revenge on everyone for what happened to them. And the only way to lift this curse was to defeat grief itself. The Rosalina of this reality saw this and understood the danger in what had happened and what could happen. She knew that due to the curse, that they would not stop killing people, maybe not even if they managed to kill their murderer. She only saw one solution. She created a portal that bended space-time. The portal sucked out the cursed souls of the 5 bodies, and by sending them through the portal, she sent the souls back in time, in hope that this would undo what had been done. She tried to send their souls back in time to a time before the curse was active, before Wario went through with the ritual. What Rosalina did not know, however, was that it created a paradox. She did not know that the demonic curse transcended time and space. The souls had been sent back in time with the curse still attached to them. This meant that the past had now been changed. A change in history had just been made. The cursed souls were sent back to early 1988. Back to Wario and Waluigi's first cafe. It was the very first opening week of Wario's. It was back to the first day with Wario as a night god. The cursed souls of Wario and the rest from the future now coexisted together with the normal souls from the past. So at the moment, the cursed souls roamed around as free spirits, as they didn't have any physical body to possess. This is the era of Five Nights at Wario's origins. Wario got a phone call from the co-worker the same night. He said he had seen a demonic-like version of Wario himself on the camera monitor earlier the same day.
I had lunch break, relaxing and goofing around with the camera system, you know, and I saw you! You, with wide glowing eyes and a deformed face!
This was indeed the cursed soul of Wario from the now alternate future. As the night progressed, Wario was able to see more people around the building, including Waluigi, Peach and even himself, just as he had been told by his co-worker. Wario was scared and confused on what was going on. The week after, they decided to close off the cafe due to the paranormal events. Wario wanted to fulfill the ultimate goal of building a fast food factory, but they simply didn't have the budget to do so. Instead, Wario and Waluigi began in the video game industry and founded WarioWare Incorporated in December 1990. They hired Toad to work for them as they needed an assistant. Things were going good, and they earned a massive amount of money, and Toad fit in perfectly. Toad eventually started writing a diary, where his last entry was on March 23rd, 1991. Bowser had been lurking around the business for days, and Toad was scared, so he hid inside a cabinet in the tool storage of the building very often. The following day, Bowser burnt down the building, turning it into ashes. However, as the fire spread and the building started to collapse, he too died in the fire himself. Bowser's body was found, and later buried under the ruins of WarioWare Incorporated. What the police did not find, however, was Toad's body. Hiding inside the cabinet, he too had died in the fire. Using the money they had earned, Wario and Waluigi finally built the fast food factory. The factory was advanced, so they really didn't need any more employees this time around. The factory was mass-producing the special hamburgers, and the name Wario's was starting to go viral. To celebrate, Wario got himself a Wario Man costume, which he used in different settings for mascot purposes. Then, one day, the thief, Bruno Gate, who also did the same thing in the first timeline, entered the factory early in the morning, waiting in the cellar. He was after the secret recipe. He found the Wario Man costume before saying to himself, "I can use this." Wario was alone in the factory for a while this day, sitting in the office, when he saw his Wario Man costume moving through the cameras. The thief, disguised in the Wario Man costume, was trying to sneak up on Wario to threaten him to get the recipe. When Waluigi appeared later the same day, the thief took his chance and stabbed both of them to death in panic. Wario, as he was dying, fell down the staircase and knocked out 2 of his teeth in the process. The thief remained in the factory, looking for the secret recipe, still in shock over what he had just done. It was later the same day that Mario, Luigi, and eventually Princess Peach entered the factory, since Wario and Waluigi didn't come home after work. In panic, Bruno Gate hung Luigi by the neck, stabbed Princess Peach, and Mario's head was chopped off. Their souls left their bodies and went to a better place, a heavenly place. Bruno, not sure exactly what he felt, kept looking for the recipe. However, the cursed souls of the 5 had followed them throughout the years, after being sent back in time from their original timeline and after haunting the first Wario's cafe. They now entered their respectful dead bodies and brought them back to life. Cursed with grief and confusion, the souls used their bodies to get revenge on the murderer. They took Bruno's life. But the curse was still not broken. They would still keep looking for him, the one, the murderer, even though he already was dead, and they would kill anyone in their path. They remained in the factory, waiting for someone to open the doors and come inside. And they would wait for years. The normal souls of Mario, Wario, Luigi, Waluigi, and Princess Peach had reached a paradise of peace. The soul of Bruno, the murderer, however, could not rest in peace. He had a guilt he could not rest with, but he couldn't understand it yet. Because of this, he too remained in the factory, together with the cursed spirits of the original 5. Only he remained in spirit form, before eventually possessing his dead body inside the Wario Man costume. The factory was quickly shut down and closed off. People passing by would sometimes see faces in the windows, and others would get an unpleasant feeling running down their spine. Some claimed the factory was haunted or even cursed. Seven years passed before a company decided to reopen Wario's fast food factory. The factory was now old and unstable, so they needed a security guard during the first night. And this job went to the new employee, Richard McRoy. This is the era of Five Nights at Wario's 1. As he sat there during the first week, he got phone calls from another employee explaining how the factory had a dark backstory.
The stories around the things that happened 7 years ago, well, they are in fact true. Well, nobody knows really what happened, but what we know is that on a Monday about 7 years ago, Wario and Waluigi went to work, and as you probably have heard somewhere, they went missing. They never came back from work, and they never came out of the factory. And after Peach disappeared, someone came up with a rumor of the factory being cursed or something, and they decided to close it off.
It was during these nights that the possessed bodies of Wario and the rest started to attack, for the first time in 7 years. Richard McRoy managed to survive the supernatural encounters, which left him a bit traumatized. By the end of the week, then the employee who had been calling Richard during the nights decided to come over and check on things, only to be murdered by Wario as he entered the factory. Richard McRoy quits his job the day after, and the factory closes for good, never to be opened again. The same company was planning to open another of Wario's old businesses. In the meantime, Richard McRoy experienced more and more weird things, and he kept on having more and more nightmares. He had nightmares of him watching a TV screen he could not move away from, and the demonic apparitions from the fast food factory would appear in the different TV channels, trying to leap out into his face before he would wake up and sweat. This is the era of Five Nights at Wario's 4. This was the cause of the cursed spirit of Luigi, who had left his own body to slowly try and possess Richard McRoy over the coming months, leading up to the reopening of another of Wario's old businesses. 3 years after the closure of Wario's fast food factory, WarioWare Incorporated was rebuilt and reopened. Wario understood that this had been planned. He knew they would reopen WarioWare Incorporated, so after the reopening, he brought the rest of the gang over there, and they would continue the kills of grief they had already started. A few months before the opening, however, he had gone over to the ruins of the previously burnt down building, and he used a form of witchcraft he managed to use due to his cursed soul, and he brought life to the dead bodies of Bowser and Toad. Their soulless, dead, zombie-like bodies would be used to further Wario and the gang's own good. He also sought out more victims to add to his demonic army. He searched out Yoshi and Ashley, as they were 2 weak victims, and cursed their souls too, adding them to his murdering army. At the same time, the now almost possessed Richard McRoy got a job there since he had already worked in the industry before, back in the fast food factory. It was all going to Wario's plan. He and the rest of the crew would not stop killing until they had killed everyone who resembled the murderer just a tiny bit. That was their curse. The newly opened WarioWare Incorporated also needed a night guard. This job was handed to the young Thomas Taylor, and Richard McRoy would call him each night to give him instructions, but he would also clearly become more and more possessed by the evil Luigi with each night.
I see you're enjoying our little game. How has your day been? I'm sure it's been full of joy. You're halfway there, friend. Only the most difficult part remains. Someone's been waiting for you, so you better give them a warm welcome.
You cannot run anymore. Thomas Taylor.
This was the era of Five Nights at Wario's 2. As the possessed bodies of Wario and the crew tried to kill Thomas Taylor with each night, Thomas Taylor became more and more scared and trusted Richard McRoy less with each night. By the end of the week, Luigi had fully possessed Richard McRoy, and Richard had to escape since the police now was after him. A news report was published saying a worker at Wario Incorporated was on the run. Thomas Taylor came out of the building unharmed and stood witness to all of this. It was here that the soul of Luigi left Richard McRoy's body and went back to his own body back in the fast food factory before he caught up with Wario and the rest. Peach's soul, however, left her body instead and took over Luigi's place in possessing Richard McRoy's body. The crew escaped WarioWare Incorporated, now hiding in the shadows. WarioWare Incorporated was closed off, and the possessed Richard McRoy was on the run. While hiding and planning their next move, the cursed body of Bowser accidentally spit out fire, burning Wario's face, leaving only his bones. Wario then lifted the curse so it wouldn't happen again, and Bowser's dead body returned to its dead state. They quickly figured out that a new employee had started to work for a security company nearby. They abused this, and Richard McRoy called him on the phone, saying they had a job for him. He said the job was to come over to a house and watch over it while the family was on vacation. This employee, named Edward Coleman, gladly agreed to this mission and went over there. The house was Richard McRoy's old family house. This is the era of Five Nights at Wario's 3. As the new employee got over there, he quickly got a phone call from Max Peterson from the company. Max warned Edward Coleman about all of this, and he said the house he was in probably was haunted.
Hello? Oh, thank God. You're in the house, right? Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Max. I'm one of the employees at your new job, but that's not important right now. What is important is for you to get out of there. I know someone hired you to watch over the house tonight because the family who is living there is on vacation, blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't know who told you that this house needed some sort of protection, but I'm pretty sure it was a prankster. You need to get out of there. That house you're in is apparently extremely haunted, and according to some files I have here, nobody has been living there for years.
Hey, good evening, it's Max here again. Hey, listen up, because I've, found some crazy information today. The ones who used to live in the house you're in right now were the McRoy family. Though that was a very long time ago, there was one child and Mr. and Mrs. McRoy. Although it's not really a familiar name to me. McRoy... Nah, it just doesn't ring any bells with me.
Wario and the rest of the crew went over there and tried to kill Edward Coleman for several nights. He managed to survive for days by hiding in different rooms. It was at this point that the soul of the original killer from the fast food factory, Bruno Gate, fully knew what he had done. He felt that he had to apologize to the others in order for him to bring peace to himself. He managed to find out which street Wario and the rest were in, but he couldn't exactly locate which house they were in. He kept looking, but he never found them. At the end of the week, Richard McRoy came over to the house himself and killed Edward Coleman, the new employee, down in the cellar. On his way there, he also killed Max Peterson. Peach now left Richard McRoy's body and returned to her own. Wario, Mario, Luigi, Waluigi and Peach now continued on their way. It was at this point Rosalina saw that this had to be stopped. She found them, and similar to the very first timeline, she created a portal in space-time, sucked out the cursed soul of the five, and sent them back in time to Wario and Waluigi's first cafe. Thus, the story repeats itself. A cycle has been created. The whole story of Five Nights at Wario's is a cycle. It was one timeline, but due to the ancient witch curse and Rosalina sending them back in time, history got changed. And in this new timeline, Rosalina doesn't remember what happened in the first timeline since time has now started over. Therefore, it ends up Rosalina stepping in and sending them back in time again, hoping it will work. This restarts the cycle.
It's time to end you. You're playing a looping game with no ends. We will do the same thing to you as we did to him.
And this continues forever. Unless the cycle can be broken. Which brings us to the final chapter. There's only one way to break the endless loop. And that is to lift the curse. Otherwise, Rosalina will keep sending them back in time. The only one who is able to lift the curse is Edward Coleman, the new employee in the security company. Inside Richard McRoy's house, there were pieces of a music box that Richard owned when he was a kid. Edward Coleman managed to assemble all parts, and when he was down in the cellar, he played the music box. The original killer, Bruno Gates, who wandered in the Wario Man costume in the streets outside, heard this music box. He immediately went inside the house and down in the cellar. And it was there that Wario and the crew met the killer again after so long. Bruno Gates, now knowing what he had really done, apologized to the crew, asking for forgiveness. Forgiveness was the only thing to defeat grief. It was the key to defeat the curse.
He did it! He apologised! He apologised for them, for what they did to us. I can feel it. Their forgiveness has brought peace to both him and them. I feel relieved.
This is your last warning! Put your hands above your head now!
I am free.
And just like that, the ancient curse was lifted. The souls of Wario, Luigi, Mario, Waluigi and Peach went to a heavenly place. Richard McRoy now returned to normal, as Peach left his body. However, the police quickly found him and shot him to death immediately. The curse on Ashley, Yoshi, and the dead body of Toad was also lifted. There was no longer any reason for Rosalina to make a jump in time. The cycle had now been broken. The souls of Wario and the rest were now at peace. The soul of Bruno Gates was now at peace. And no one ever found the ancient evil that was hidden beneath the closed-off Wario's fast food factory. And that is the full story of Five Nights at Wario's. What I want to do is to say thank you to all of you who has watched these videos, watched my previous videos, played my games, and supported my games. If you enjoy this, I really hope you will share it around, share it with others who might be interested, because this is a video I put a lot of work into. Not only just the video editing itself and the recording, but building up the story. So if you could share it around, it would be greatly appreciated. And if you like it, dropping a like rating on this video would also mean a whole lot. If you want to see more videos from me, make sure to subscribe. Again, thank you so much for watching, thank you for playing my games, and I will see you all on the next video. Goodbye.